H.P. Lovecraft has an amazing resume. He created a whole new genre of weird fiction. He created a mythos that seeped into the zeitgeist and almost 100 years later is still influencing writers. He was also a giant racist.
There has been a resurgence of people looking at his work lately, and especially people of color, examining it and challenging it.
And one of the forefront books of this movement is The Ballad of Black Tom, a re-examination of the horror of Red Hook, which comes together to make an interesting novella.
Set in 1920s Harlem, Tom has to deal with a life in segregated, racist New York. He's trying to make ends meet and support his dying father by the only way he knows how: grifting. And not the kind of grifting that hurts people, but he likes to pretend that he's a better guitarist than he actually is for white people.
One day Tom runs into a rich white man named Sudium who gives him a suspiciously large amount of money to play guitar at a party he's having.
Minutes after Tom agrees, the rich guy walks off and Tom is harassed by a PI and a detective who are tailing Sudium and rip off all the money Tom received.
So begins Tom's descent into the world of the weird, as Tom quite quickly gets initiated into the mystical ways of Cthulhu and the old gods.
But when tragedy strikes in Tom's life, tragedy that could easily happen to any black person in 1920s Harlem, Tom realizes that the power of the old gods could be exactly what he needs to correct the injustices of the world.
And anyone who stands in Tom's way is going to find a reckoning, because now Tom is furious. The Ballad of Black Tom is a response to, and how do we say this delicately, the hideous and despicable racism of H.P. Lovecraft, who was a despicable and hideous racist.
More specifically, the Ballad of Black Tom is a response to his short story, The Horror of Red Hook, in which a white policeman watches a rich, eccentric white man use the baser, primordial, sinful nature of the dumb people of color in Red Hook in order to do, I don't know, something with the old ones.
Of course, he doesn't consider for a second that maybe the people of color living in that cramped corner of the city with little access to education and other basic human necessities aren't there because they enjoy it, but because they're denied access to those things.
And you know, being not white doesn't automatically make you devil spawn, but you know, who's paying attention?
Definitely not Lovecraft.
By LaValle switching the focus of the story from the white detective who, let's be honest, had very little agency in the story to begin with, to the perspective of the ignored elements in the story, you get a really spectacular analysis of the ways in which Lovecraft marginalized people of color in the story.
You get a great method of depicting what life was like for people of color in Harlem in the 1920s, and taking back some of their agency.
Tom wasn't a character in The Horror of Red Hook, which says a lot more about Lovecraft than it does about anything else. Lovecraft featured tons of people of color extras, but didn't bother to give even one of them a name. He just used some very hateful descriptions.
So Tom is all LaValle's creation, and he fits Tom into the story in a perfect way. He manages to take on a traditional role and then subvert it. Tom starts as the hired help, someone who could have easily been a nameless black manservant in a Lovecraft story, and then takes control of the narrative in the best way possible.
The Ballad of Black Tom is a novella which is the perfect length for the story, but it doesn't make the slightest difference when it comes to how LaValle makes you feel for Tom and all the way that Tom gets screwed over because society doesn't care about him.
There isn't a lot of fluff, and there doesn't need to be in order for the story to deliver its final punch.
And believe us when we say that the final punch of the story is perfect and fitting and unique.
We picked up this book because we knew about the whole Lovecraft being a gigantic racist thing, but we never really did a deep dive into that element of his writing.
And this was a great way to do it. LaValle created a really well thought out and fun read with The Ballad of Black Tom.
It's memorable, and it's a great Lovecraftian story that almost seems more Lovecraftian than the original.
So if you get a chance to read The Ballad of Black Tom, take it, and for more analysis with spoilers, check out our spoiler review.